95% of sub-Saharan about 90 to 95% of sub-Saharan cultural artifacts are housed outside Africa. Many, like the works from Benin, were taken during the colonial period and ended up in museums across Europe and North America. The African Museum in Belgium have about 85% of the museum's collection comes from the Congo, the site of Belgium's former colony in Central Africa. Some of these artifacts were brought by missionaries, while others were brought by civil servants. Some resulted from military expeditions and plundering, and for decades, Congolese leaders have asked for these objects to be returned, but most of their requests and those of other African countries' museums have been refused, with some exceptions, particularly for human remains. But recent events in Europe have raised the possibility of repatriations at a much larger scale, as the French President Emmanuel Macron commissioned a study on how African art French museums are holding can be returned, as well as make recommendations on how to collect it. Senegalese economist Felwine Sow and Benedict Savo were chosen as the study authors. It is quite abnormal that a large part of African cultural heritage is in Europe or in Western museums, but in France, some press coverage has suggested returns of these artifacts could leave a vacant shelves in French museums, and rather suggested that more African art can go on display. For now, these wooden objects from Benin are back at the Branly Museum in Paris with a loan from the French Development Agency. The French Minister of Culture, Frank Reister, said that it will take an act of the French Parliament to release them from the Branly collection and another law to allow for wider permanent returns.
That was what hit the headlines on cultural matter, the repatriation of some of the African artifacts. Uche Chinwe, sub-Saharan cultural artifacts, where's in Europe, and how did they all get it there?
The cultural artifacts were taken by missionaries, civil servants that traveled to Europe and America during the colonial period. And some also got there through military expeditions and plundering. But for example, the bronze cockerel that Jesus College wanted to return to Nigeria. That's a cockerel, also a cockerel that is okoko, also known as okoko, was taken to Jesus College in Cambridge in 1905. By a father of a student of Jesus Cambridge. So you see that everybody, whenever they are traveling, they just pick something of interest, as in something that will interest all these white people to just travel over maybe and donate it like it's nothing to the white men, and then feel like, oh, it's nothing, let them just have it.
So, Uche, it's our cultural artifact.
Oui,
it's my culture.
Yes.
Is your culture. Is there any organization for help in this repatriation?
Yeah, the organization like
in Africa.
Yes. Organization like Open Society Foundation.
Yes.
Have been fighting. Even they donated $15 million in fighting for the repatriation of all these African artifacts outside the African continent to be returned.
But it's not enough. Government should
not just them. Even the French president, like Emmanuel Macron, he has been fighting, sending people, training people on how to coordinate and bring back all these cultural artifacts abroad. So they've been working hand in hand to make sure everything returns to African continent.
Uche, are you sure that European people, American people want that stolen artifacts to come back?
They don't really want, but they don't have a choice than to return it. Because it is not their...
Because it's not a recent...
It is not their property. It is not their property. It is not their property. They have to return it to Africans.
Yes, yeah.
It is not their property.
Yes. Do we actually come to terms with the importance, the significance of keeping most of these artifacts, this cultural artifact? You join us here, Stefan.
Good evening, Mr. Wele. Good evening, Mimi. Good evening, Miche. You are very beautiful on this today. I know now you are celebrating the Christmas and just like the culture. Yes. So my question, the big question is how the concrete action our government for bring the statue in Africa, because that representation is our identity, is a culture, is our history, and the children is a future for the children, because my children have to learn about this mask. What is concrete? What is the concrete action of the government?
With regards to Africa, I think repatriation of stolen artifacts is all about building an Africa, our Africa that is proud of itself and back in possession of its history that we are taking during colonial period. I think the government of all African continents should stand up and put hands together in repatriating all these artifacts that the colonial masters took away from us. They should put hands in order and bring it back to Africa, because our children need to see all these artifacts and learn from it. It is our heritage. It is not the white man's heritage.
Yes, but African Union.
Also the African Union.
About that, Mr. Willie.
No, I'm not really looking at it in terms of African Union. Yes. I'm looking at it in terms of each of the country that this artifact has been returned. Take for instance, maybe the Benin, which has returned, the Senegal, they have returned the sword, the France returned the sword, and then in Nigeria, the cockerel. Would they really understand, or will our children, which we are talking about here, go in there to learn, to know more about most of these artifacts?
But Mr. Willie, what do you think about if now the Museum of Europe is get ready to bring the statue to Africa? Because because
they will lose money if they do that.
No, you see, because but the point I am raising here is that most of these artifacts, if some people, we have a mentality of saying, oh, this is evil, you cannot go to the museum, you will see a ghost.
I think we are in civilization era now. Parents should stop all this. This is evil. This is that. We are in civilization era, and I think it has gotten to a point that we have to expose our children to some certain cultures so that they grow with it.
No, I think we have the anthropologue in Africa. We can teach the children about a mask. Our mask. That's a problem, because we don't have the teacher of we don't have the teacher about it.
If you talk about it, it's true. No,
excuse me. You cannot just train a child about mask at home. The child needs to move to a museum and get in contact with this mask.
Museums.
We
haven't.
That is the reason they should return it.
No, we cannot really.
It's a way of doing things.
We have a 5% museum in Africa.
Yes.
In Senegal, we have in Senegal. Yes, we have the museum. In Rwanda, we have the museum.
I do not believe, because even right here in Gabon, we have a museum.
Yes,
we do.
Even Nigeria, we have a museum as well.
Yes, we
cannot just say we don't have a museum.
The problem with the museum is
they've taken all the art objects away. Even when you get there, you will just be seeing some minor things that is not the exact thing that is meant to be seen.
The problem is,
and when they want to give it something, most of that maybe, but sometimes it's not the real thing.
It is not that, because they can only return. The European can only return what they get from Africa and not more. They are not going to return what belongs to them. Those are artifacts that were stolen when we call it, they take away with of course they knew the value of those artifacts, which we do not know, not until now that we have seen.
We have to fight for the part of our culture, because this one represents the culture from Africa. So, so we have to fight.
Our story.
Yes. The story, the culture, the identity, the spiritual movement. You understand? And that's European. That word of European is the cream of the system, the cultural system of Africa.
Okay, before we round up this issue on the culture, I don't know, Carol, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we are talking about the culture.
Yes, Joe, I'm there. I'm listening to you.
Yes, the culture, our culture, most of the artifacts that are returned by the Europeans. What is your take on that?
It's a good thing. It's a good thing for Africa to have their artifact back.
Yes.
Because many things that African lost a lot during war, First War and Second War. Well, I'm talking about the World War One and World War Two.
Yes,
Yes.
Second World War. Yeah.
Africa lost a part of dignity. Africa lost a part of his humanity by these people, colons, European countries that were coming here into Africa and take our artifact to take them to their own museum.
Yes.
So bringing them back is fair, is justice, and is good for the country. I think so.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Carol. I think when we come back, we will take a look at politics in 2019.